Okay, I was just doing a live stream and I was experimenting with pausing it by disconnecting with the internet and then reconnecting because I'd actually done a little test live stream that was unlisted and that seemed to work. But I was just looking at the live stream that I just recorded, or I thought I'd recorded, and that didn't work at all. Once I paused it, it never came back. So that feature, shall we say, that I thought there was didn't really work. So I thought, well, I don't want to disappoint people because people have asked a whole bunch of questions, which actually already answered, but they didn't get recorded. So I figured I'll do it again. The whole idea of pausing a live stream is that I could look at the computer, look at the questions, and not have these awkward long pauses while I'm staring at the computer going, what the heck, well, what should I answer, what should I answer? Because when you're watching one of those things, that's just really, really boring. When you're staring at the computer all the time. I remember when I did the live stream with John Heists maybe 5 years ago, there was a lot of these pauses looking at the computer, what shall we answer next? So I'll start by answering the questions that I'd actually, on the last time I thought I paused it, except I killed it real good. So I'll answer some of those questions first. First question is, have you considered building a camera rig? I guess that's for attaching, maybe a monitor to camera and all that. So you got this big thing with a big monitor on it and the microphone and all that. And it's like, really? I have a camera. There's the camera part. Here's the microphone. Here's the screen. That's my camera rig. And I can hold it in one hand. And actually, I hold that one in my hand quite a lot. What I like about this camera is the image stabilization on it is actually fairly good. So it's not too shaky. Before that one, I used this Nikon. This is a Nikon J3. What's nice about the Nikons is the sound quality on these ones is really excellent. This one isn't as good, but it's okay. But the image stabilization is good on it, and it's got other features, got a bunch of other features on them that I quite like. What I don't like about it is it zooms out to 28 millimeters for taking still photos. But if you're taking video, it crops, which means you're only about 35 millimeter width, which is okay as long as your workshop is big enough. Next question is, what's the best table saw blade for what kind of cuts? And it's very simple. You use a blade like this. This is that's not a very good blade. This came with my table saw. Maybe I should show this side. And this is sort of a universal blade. It's good for cross-cutting and for rip cuts. There are, of course, cross-cutting blades. This is a cross-cutting blade, and this is a rip-cutting blade. So a cross-cut blade will make cleaner cross-cuts if all you're doing is cross-cutting, and a ripping blade is much more efficient for doing rip cuts. So this one actually came out of a dumpster, and I resharpened it. But I bought a blade like that for my brother's table saw, which only has a 0.5 horsepower motor on it, and it just couldn't cut through very much, even though the blade wasn't all that dull. So I got one of these. This is a ripping blade, and with that, it was able to cut so much better. So fewer teeth for ripping really, really helps. So if you want to do a lot of resawing, it might be worth changing the blade. But really, you should put a universal blade on your table saw because you are not going to change the blade for every time you need to make a cut. So just put a universal blade on it and leave it on there. Another question I've asked, I'll re-answer some of the other questions that didn't appear to get recorded in the last one, is am I making any changes to the blade guides on the bandsaw from the previous one? No, actually. These are the blade guides. I just took these off of my 20-inch bandsaw, and I quite like this design, so I'm not planning on making any sort of substantial changes to it. Of course, every time I build it, I was just rewatching the video, and for instance, there's a T-nut on here, which I didn't mean to put in there, but I already drilled a hole big enough for the bolt, so I had to put a T-nut in there, whereas this time I'm just going to thread the bolt straight into the wood. And then the other change that I decided to make is this column is going to be about 0.5 centimeter wider, because this goes on here like so, and that fits when it goes all the way up, it goes kind of into the beam. That's this part here. And if this sticks out the back, I had to actually cut a notch in there to make room for that part if it's sticking out the back a little bit, just depending on how it's adjusted. So now if I just make this a little bit wider, I won't need that notch like I have on the 20-inch bandsaw, and that simplifies the design. But this being bandsaw number 5 that I've built, I've iterated on this a lot, so the changes that I make keep getting smaller. Oh yeah, another question. Have we sold a mobile account? No, my mom decided not to sell it. She wants to keep it for as long as she's alive, which means, of course, at some point we will have to sell it in a hurry. I've had various people email me over that might be interested. Most people are flakes about this sort of thing, but when the time comes, I will probably search through my emails and email anybody who's expressed interest in it. The problem is it's not something that most people can buy, because anything that's not a residential property, banks want to be able to flip it quickly if things go badly. And a residential property is kind of a commodity. So, I say $500,000 residential property, they know they can flip it quickly at $450,000. Whereas if it's a commercial property or anything sort of slightly unusual, there's not as much liquidity. So if it's a $500,000 property, they say it's like, well, we can flip it quickly for $300,000, so we'll lend you that much on it, and the rest you have to come up with yourself, which means you need to have a lot of cash on hand for a property like that. Okay, another re-answering a question, do I still enjoy software development? Yes. So I've been working on my software called Image Comp, that's IMGCOMP. I put it on GitHub not that long ago. And I just keep adding features to it. It's fun to work on a program when you're kind of on a roll or like actively developing it. It's hard to get into a program that you haven't touched in a long time. But this program, because I actually use it, I've got 10 Raspberry Pis running that software right now. And so I keep finding little bugs here and there or little improvements. One of the features I've got in it is it now turns on the light automatically if it detects motion, and it does that by using, just a sec. One of these TP-Link smart plug, although this is one of the older models. The mini one is better because it doesn't plug up two circuits, and this one actually doesn't switch anymore. The relay on it died, but this is one of the ones that can measure power level, so it's very useful for experiments. So I just shorted the switch. And it only takes maybe, without any libraries, it only takes maybe 40 lines of Python to control one of these switches. So it's really nice. So when my software detects motion, if it's configured to do so, it'll start a script, and that turns on the light. And then if it hasn't seen motion for a long time, it triggers the script again, which turns off the light. So in my workshop, the lights come on as soon as I come in, which is very cool. Let's see. I should look in here. Winter Gatan collab. No. The stuff he does is just too. He needs people that can do CNC and manufacture parts for him, and I just don't have the time. I don't do CNC, and a lot of it is metal work too. I mean, he does make things out of wood, but he's got his own CNC for that, and I don't have a CNC. And the precision requirements and all that. I enjoy watching his videos, but no, I don't have time for it, unfortunately. Let me just scroll through here. What else is there? Sorry about the other failed chat there, or the failed live stream. I thought I could pause it, couldn't. I thought at some point in the past I could pause a live stream, but I guess I can't wish that feature into existence. If you could buy a dream tool, what would it be? What tool? Is there a tool you really regret buying? Well, I bought this counter-rotating saw, which cuts metal, which is really nice to use, but it's very easily damaged. And in the move, I was purging a whole lot of stuff, and I gave that one away. So it was a nice tool to use, but once I chipped too many of the teeth, I think I paid about $130 for that, and I think when I was looking at how much new blades would cost, it would be about $90. So it was steeply discounted when I bought it. And then I decided, it's like, well, for that kind of price, I'd rather not use it. I'm better off just using an angle grinder, which isn't as nice to use. But if I wrecked a blade in an angle grinder, I'm out like $2. So yeah, I regret buying that one. I wouldn't buy it again, but it wasn't very much. Okay, so here I'm going to go look at, do I still have family in Germany? This question is actually asked in German. Extended family, yes. I haven't been back when Harriet, our first one, was 9 months old. Rachel and I went to Germany. But since then, with 2 kids, it would have been difficult. With 3 kids, it's even more difficult. we would like to go back again, but it's like the kids have to be a certain age for that to be practical. Certainly, if they're 3 or less, they don't get much out of it in that everything is new. Well, we just have to go to a different part of the town and everything is new. You don't have to go to a different country. They don't appreciate the extra novelty of a different country when everything is new around you yet. Okay, let's see. What are the most important tools do you have? Oh yeah, and somebody asked in the previous one, which I answered. Again, it got lost. What are the most frequently used tools, which of course are also the most important? That'd be table saw, drill press, bandsaw. And I keep those close together along with a workbench, because as I'm the sort of stuff that I do, as I'm tinkering, those are the tools I always go in between. So it's important to keep those close together. So let's see. So there's the bandsaw. This is not the one I use, of course, yet, because it's not done. So there's a bandsaw, drill press, table saw. And the jointer and the planer don't have to be that close to where I am, because I don't go to those that often. I wouldn't want them to be in a different room, but those don't get used as much. And this is just a crappy little drill press. I've got a bigger one in the other room, but the fact is, 9 times out of 10, that one is quite adequate. And there's some advantage to not using the fanciest tools in terms of not making it so intimidating. Unless, of course, it's a bandsaw or a panther rotor. Oh yeah, panther rotor, yeah, it's another tool where if I'm doing joinery setup, it's very useful, but it's not something that I go to all the time. So it's not in my sort of central corral. Oh yeah, belt sanders, actually. Those I actually use quite a lot just to smooth some edge or something like that. I quite like this one, the bigger strip sander that I built. And there's my edge belt sander, which also works as I can flip it up, but I don't do that very much. Okay, let's see, some more questions. There's some questions that people are asking about. Oh yeah, how did I get into YouTube? That's another one I answered, which again, the answer got lost because I wasn't recording when I thought I was. And I didn't really get into YouTube for the sake of it at the time. I just needed some place to put some videos of my marble machines. And so I created a YouTube account. I was aware of YouTube because YouTube had just been bought for some crazy figure of 1.6 billion, which that seemed like an insane amount of money to pay for some small thing. Obviously, it's worth way more than that now. So I was like, hey, I can upload my videos there and I don't have to worry about paying for bandwidth. And I talked a bit about that on the Chad and Steve Have a Podcast. There was an episode we recorded a month ago, and that's online. And we recorded another episode just before New Year's. That one isn't online yet. Hopefully it will be on YouTube. It is. They do put them on podcasts like Apple and Spotify and whatever. But I kind of like watching that sort of thing on video. So I think that one will go onto YouTube. I will probably post about it when it is. In fact, I recorded a little video of when I was recording that, which I'll put on this channel, my second channel, just to sort of announce that podcast so people can find it. So look for that. I'm hoping that maybe sometime this week it'll come out, but I'm not sure. Okay, and of course, I'm ignoring the vast majority of your questions. I'm just going to go look at what's there now. Let's see, there's many super chats, so I don't want to neglect those ones. So I'll pick out a few more questions, answer those, and we're already, well, it's not too long, but these hour-long live streams, people don't really enjoy watching them. They kind of get a bit too long, so. Okay, there's a super chat here that's a real dumb sort of thing, so I won't answer that one. Sorry. Are your bandsaw plans bundled? Yeah, you can buy there. I have, if you select more than one, there's discounts that apply. So just generally, the more plans you select, there's more discounts, but then I have also bandsaws together. So there's a very steep discount on if you buy one bandsaw, then the second one I think is one bandsaw plans. The second one is only $4 and the third one's only $4. That's basically, I could see if I'm trying to buy a plan and like, should I build this one or should I build that one? Well, this one's got this and this one's so by basically, well, for an extra $4 you get the other one too. Okay, no problem. I'll just if you can't make up your mind, get both of them, kind of thing. If you're kind of humming and hawing between, say, the 16-inch and the 20-inch, and of course, then the 26-inch will add another sort of thing. The sweet spot for most people is the 16-inch. It's already bigger than the 14-inch. It's not too unwieldy. To me, ever since I built the 20-inch, I think that's the sweet spot. And once this one's done, maybe that'll be the sweet spot for me. Who knows? Bigger is better. And there's been so many questions about three-wheel bandsaws. That's a terrible idea. And my answer to that usually is in the comments, is like, go to woodgears.ca and search for bad bandsaw ideas. And you'll find what I think about three-wheel bandsaws. What's your experience with... Oh, that scrolled away on me. Okay, bear with me there for a sec. If you had an unlimited supply of any exotic wood, what would it be and why? I don't like using exotic woods, so it's useful to have small amounts of it here and there when I need something really hard. But it's actually a little bit dangerous to work with in terms of causing allergies. And it's expensive and all that, and I wouldn't want to make everything out of exotic woods for my YouTube videos, even if I had a huge pile of it, because again, that sort of adds distance. So I quite like 2x4 lumber. And I use that for when I need a lot of wood. So for the bandsaw build, I'm going to need some harder woods for some of it. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of scraps of exotic, and there isn't a store for that. But even so, the guide blocks on. So for instance, this is an exotic wood. This is a very hard wood. But on the first bandsaw I built, I just made the guide blocks out of hard maple, soaked that in oil, and you know what? I don't have that bandsaw anymore. I got rid of it when I moved. Kind of regret that now, which is partially why I'm building this one. It didn't wear out, so it's really hard maple is actually quite good. Ironwood, of course, ironwood is kind of ambiguous, but there is a domestic wood that grows in Canada that people refer to as ironwood. It's heavier than water, and that's a nice wood. It's a light color, so it doesn't really look like an exotic wood. Oh, how is my arm? Well, not as bad as it used to be. And the key is not to tackle a lot of heavy lifting. So as long as I'm just puttering around in the shop, it's fine. Okay. Oh, you see that? The light just turned out on me. This is, yes. So one of these switches just turned off on me. And now you notice it just turned on because I was stalled too long looking at the screen. And my software decided, oh, there's no motion here. There's nobody in the shop. Let's turn off the light. So that's my software now. So I'll just have to be more animated, and then the lights will never come off. Let's see. What is the limit of box door pine? What furniture or layout would you not use it for? You know, there is so much variation in that sort of thing. So if you're in the southern U.S., some of it will be southern yellow pine, which is an incredibly hard wood. Like that's very solid wood. It's harder than white oak. And here, some of the old growth stuff will be comparable to, again, white oak. White oak is not the hardest of the hardwoods for sure. So you just have to pick it carefully. Some of it is shit, of course. You don't buy the wood that's shit. And this is what's great about buying lumber at the Home Depot. You can see what's there. And if I'm in the Home Depot and they just started a new pile, they just opened up a new bundle kind of thing, it hasn't been picked through yet. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that looks nice. There's some nice looking boards. I'll buy those. Other key is you buy more than you need, because that way, if you don't need super long pieces, you can just cut out between the knot holes and stuff like that. So I'm quite a fan of using basically a big box store SPF, as it's usually labeled. That means spruce, pine, or fir. It's like whatever they happen to have, whatever is available more locally, because they don't cart that too far. By local, I mean like in your province or in your state, not necessarily your town. Hello, Matthias. Greetings from Germany as well, and some money. Thank you for all the content. Oh, thank you. Oh, 25 euro. That's a fair bit. Do you know that YouTube actually takes about 1/3 of any sort of super chat money, unfortunately, which is seems to be, taking about, or 30%. Seems to be about normal. Like if you write an iPhone app, they'll take that much, unless you're a small business. That's a new thing they added. What I've discovered recently, even Patreon actually takes quite a large cut. Patreon takes 18%. Now, they claim, when you look at the statement, they claim to be taking much less than that, but then I think it was like something like 15% is counted. 15% is counted as transaction costs, which is a lie, because I know that I sell stuff online. So 3% is about typical of what the transaction cost is in terms of going through PayPal or credit card. So they bury some of their stuff in the transaction costs. And the reason they do that is Patreon is far too bloated a company for what they do. And rather than admit that, oh, wait, we have this wrong and we should scale back so that the money that we do earn makes sense. You can't really do that when you got investors and whatnot. So it's like, oh, well, let's just add all these bells and whistles that allow us to make more money. Oh, I'm not animated enough. And it won't turn on the light for a few more seconds because sometimes just the act of turning off the lights will trigger the motion. This is totally, I should have disabled this thing, but see now if I'm going to get up and move, there. Lights on again. It works great when I'm doing stuff in the shop, not so much for when I'm sitting down. This is going to be funny. I think next time that the lights turn off, I should just say, it's like, okay, that's enough. Okay, and let's see, and we are in 21 minutes now. I think that's getting to be long enough. Okay, you know what? I think these super long live streams are kind of boring to watch. They get repetitive. And there isn't a question. Oh, Patreon is also doing many other social things. And if you're on Patreon, you also support other things. I'm not sure how much money they spend on that sort of thing. I looked at some point, like they were losing money hand over fist. They got an investment again recently, or not too long ago, which means it'll be longer before they run out of money. I am not terribly fond of Patreon. I am on Patreon at this point, by the way. Because people bugged me about that, so I thought I'd try it, and I think it's like $300 a month now on that. Although I'm not sure if that's pre or past taking their cut. They take their cut. Yeah, they take a fair bit of cut. So if you want to support anybody, if they sell any sort of digital goods, you can support them much more efficiently by buying their digital goods, because then usually like some kind of online store, if they're using some kind of store, say Shopify or something like that, those take a relatively small percentage, and then of course there's the transaction costs. Whereas if you're doing a super chat or you're buying their iPhone app or Patreon, like there's a fair cut. The worst way of supporting somebody is buying physical goods, because of course you get the physical good, which you might want. You might want that T-shirt, that mug, or if they've written a book. But the fact is, most of that money goes towards the physical goods. So if you buy somebody's nice book for, say, $30, the creator gets, I don't know, I would guess probably around $2 to $3. But you get the nice book. If you want that book, great for you. But don't kid yourself that you really, really supported that person. So the most efficient way is the most direct way if you want to support somebody. You don't have to do it. I'm doing fine. Okay. And without much else, I think I'll call it over, and hopefully it won't be too bad to watch. So ending stream, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.